Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hot Path Show, episode 00100000, aka episode 32, also known as episode 2 to the 5th. We got a special Power of 2 episode for you all today. So, welcome in, everybody. Of course, joined by both of my Scandinavian fellows today, Tobias and Danny. Welcome in. How are you doing today, Tobias?
I'm doing excellent. Actually, excellent. Yeah.
Wonderful. That is just swell. Danny, you just slid in like 10 seconds before we went live here. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I just
was-
had to make sure the camera was working and everything. Yeah, and my cat peed on the floor for whatever reason, so that was fun.
You got all kinds of stuff going on over
Well,
there.
there's way more annoying parts that the cat could pee on, so I guess floor is kind of all right.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you got
yeah,
hardwood
exactly.
too, so yeah.
Very easy to clean. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, I was telling Tobias I thought that you probably were like sprinting your way home from the Unity office or something, but
Not this time. Not this time. I was parsecing into my work today, so
oh, look at you. Of course, Parsec, Unity owned company, by the way.
yeah.
So do you guys have like all the full pro licenses and everything, I'm assuming?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. That's cool. Tobias, do you use Parsec much at all?
I
You
don't know what it is.
Sorry.
Heard of TeamViewer or like?
Oh yes,
It's-
now
it's
I
a
know what
remote
it is.
desktop
No,
type thing,
yeah.
yeah.
No,
So yeah, it's like screen sharing but for gaming, and it's very performant and very nice to use.
It's for gaming.
It's
That's
often
kind of
used for gaming.
originally how it was, right? Like you could kind of remote into your gaming PC from wherever and play games, and then
Yeah.
Unity ended up acquiring them, and then now it's kind of like a little bit more just kind of regular.
It's
Do whatever
because
you want
it's
on your computer.
Right.
yeah, it's high performant, so it works really well for pretty much anything. So because it was high performant enough for games, then you can also use it for everything else. The nice thing is also you can have multiple screens shared, and then say, hey, you should not keep your mouse locked, but you should keep the keyboard locked. So that means that you can now have multiple screens, and Alt tapping works, for instance, and like all your
right.
key locks, as if you were on that machine, and it just feels
Yeah.
natural.
Nice.
Which is
Yeah.
sometimes a problem because you will forget that you are parsecing.
And you will, yeah.
I
Yeah,
remember
no.
doing a speed test for my internet and seeing, oh, this speed doesn't match at all what I was expecting.
And you are through another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use something called DW service. It's a free web browser based remote thing. And I don't game much, so I don't need any remote gaming possibility. So yeah, but yeah, I've heard about it for sure. Yeah. I use TeamViewer, but TeamViewer has sort of shit the bed. I think they're very annoying nowadays.
Kinda, yeah. TeamViewer is definitely a lot more laggy compared to Parsec. When I was in Europe last year, I ended up using Parsec to remote back to my computer, back on the west coast of the United States. And I mean, of course, I wasn't like gaming or doing anything like super low latency, but it was like more than sufficient for me to hop back on my computer. I was able to use some programs on there, and yeah, it worked really well. I was very happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not just saying it because I work here. In this case, it is a really good program.
But you also work there now.
Yeah, no, I'm fully biased. And I will give it that much. But
I know
really
even
love
like
this program.
Jason Wyman, he uses it like every day. He says like even in his house, he'll just be like up in his bed and he has his laptop and he'll parsec down to his like main desktop computer and he'll just kind of work off it like that.
Yeah, no. And it's also incredibly cursed sometimes because at work you will see some co-workers work on the Mac, and then you will see like it's fully Windows, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? But it's often just because they're passing it into the actual working machine.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of how I am right now. I got a Mac laptop, and so every time I connect to my desktop, then it's like, yeah, get the Windows on the Mac experience.
And it remaps all the buttons correctly, and yeah.
Yeah.
Fancy
Anyway,
stuff.
so there's your little ad, Parsec. Please pay us.
All right, I know what I'm getting if I need more advanced.
But yeah, so I guess we can kind of roll into a little bit of a warm up topic. Tobias, you kind of inspired this. I didn't really have like a warm up topic prepared, but you're telling me you just got like the robot vacuum here, and then you're
Yes.
using your electric fly swatter and all this. So it's like, it's kind of cool to see all these like kind of more robotics and stuff get into our daily lives. And I just kind of wonder, like, did you get another one?
Yep.
Nice.
Sorry to distract you.
No, it's good. So I'm just kind of curious about, like, what other types of robotics things would you like to see maybe within your day-to-day life? When Tesla comes out with their humanoid robotics, are you guys gonna be getting one?
Sub-Optimus Prime, or what is
Optimus Prime.
I think they call it that or something. I don't know. I think because we have Felix, our dog, a vacuum cleaner that is very good with all of the fur. Otherwise, I'm a little bit on the side of like it's good for your soul to do annoying things. So I don't want to. Like our driveway or walkway, you need to like hack the grass off to the side so it doesn't get overgrown. There could be a robot for that for sure, but I'm like, nah. I like to get my shoulders a little bit stiff and stuff by sitting and doing that in the hot summer sun. It's like you appreciate the things in life after you've done that for 2 hours. So
meanwhile, I have a what's it called? I have Google something home set up.
I
right
have
there.
one too. Yeah.
And it's hooked up to my curtains, so I can just like say, "Hey, close all the curtains." I have once had a friend come over and then say, "Well, I can't close the curtains right now; they're out of battery." It's not a common problem.
No, yeah. But Google Home I have, but that mostly for like asking about the time and the weather, and then saying to play Spotify or whatever. So it's not like my life is not run by electronics like that, not at all. Yeah. But if there is a Optimus robot that are able to do everything in the home, and it costs like I don't know, $20,000 or something, I would not buy it. Actually, I would be like, nah, I like doing stuff manually. But that might just be me. So
I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit conflicted on this because like you say, doing a little bit of yard work. That's I kind of agree. Like I like doing that. It's like you kind of have like your own space. It's nice to kind of like take care of it, clean shop a little bit. But then like last weekend I was like outside just pulling a bunch of weeds. I filled like 5 trash bags of weeds, and it was like kind of nice. And now like the backyard looks nice and everything, so that's kind of cool. And you have like your own little space that you can take care of. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. But then also it's like, I feel like I'm folding laundry like every other day, and it's just like that's just like so repetitive and annoying. It's
like a folding laundry type of robot, that would be nice. That's
so I just gotta say with the laundry, I think laundry is a uniquely annoying thing. It's like you do the laundry where you sort shit and then you throw it in and you're like trying to make everything right with the temperature and everything, and then you do all of that and you then put it on dry and you feel so accomplished and it feels so nice to finally get all the clothes cleaned, and then you gotta fold the bastards. I think that just ruins everything. Like if it wasn't the folding, it's like it's too far of it should have been done before.
What about like bed sheets and like Sweden uses duvets as well. So
what
like what's it called? The cover for your bed and all the
doesn't
like a comforter.
Oh, you guys are on a different system then.
So
we got a bed
so
sheet system.
The way that beds work in Denmark is that you have your mattress, and over your mattress you have a cover, and that's normally what you're supposed to clean. And then what you sleep with is something called a duvet, and the duvet is like what should you call it? Like there's the thing itself, and then there is the wrapping around it, and it's the wrapping around it that you put in the washer.
Doesn't everybody has? Do you wash your whole sheet with everything inside? To- Johnny.
Well, so I actually got both. So the one in the
Because
guest bedroom, that one is a more like you're saying, you open it up, you pull the stuff out, and you kind of got the outside. You could wash that. The one on my room, it's all sewn shut. It's sealed.
that, from what I've heard, that's more normal in the US. That zone shot situation.
Right. Yeah.
But do you put that whole thing like in the
Yeah,
washing
yeah. I
machine?
mean, it's
Like
pretty
it
much like
takes
the only thing I could put in the washing machine.
so you basically take up a whole washing machine for then, I guess, because
Yeah.
it's so fluffy and big.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I don't want to
That's
shit
something-
on your way of life over there, but that
It's
sounds
also
so
not like
weird.
it's also not like super thick because it's not like negative 1,000 degrees. Here
Okay,
and-
fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, point taken. But I guess then I get the same thing as you, Danny. We got
Yeah,
that.
and it's the same for the pillow. The pillow also has a wrapper.
Yeah. I didn't even know. I've been to US 7 times and I never noticed.
I
So-
saw the strangest thing. I think it was when I was in Amsterdam, I guess, for Unite last year. They had like the comforter, duvet, whatever you call it, on top. It was split in two, so there was like a half of one on each side of the bed. So like if two people were like in the bed, then each person would have like their own half of the comforter.
Yeah.
That's how we have it right now.
This is fairly normal European.
I'm like,
Why?
it's do you have your own sheet or do you share
Just all
sheets?
one for the full bed.
So if and do you do the same thing with the cover?
Yeah. It's all one thing.
So if your other significant one wants to have,
Yeah, it ends up being a problem. Yeah.
well, well, I call a win on the separated one. But I don't know. But I guess the sheets, that was kind of relevant to have it. But I think the point is that then you can treat the bed as two smaller beds. You just have a frame that pushes them together, so you can use the whole supply chain of normal sized single beds for your double bed. A lot of, I think my parents have that also, and I would think most people have that, unless you have like a very fancy big like together bed that's made together. But there's so many of them that is like split in the middle, and also in that way you can have different types of bed on either side, because maybe that's very common, but the other one likes a lot softer bed than that, and then you can have different I don't know.
That's funny.
I'm losing words here, but you get my point.
Yes. But my point was also, you at least for the Danish system, and I'm sure it's the same for the Swedish one. It's recommended that you like your bed cover, you change it out every month, and the same goes for all your sheets around the
Every month, for sure.
pillowcase and so on.
Because we have a dog that comes up in this bed maybe twice a week or something. We gotta change it almost more than once a week sometimes.
And it's I would say even more annoying, because you have to like get all the covers off and then put it in and then put it back on again, and you have to do that within the day, because otherwise
Well, we have like
Yeah.
three sets of everything, so you just
yeah,
rotate
sure,
it.
you can do
Yeah.
that as well. Yeah.
So that's fine. But yeah, that's also super putting the cover inside of the
There's a
sheets
whole thing to how you put it on in.
That's super annoying. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna wind back my roasting of the American ways.
Exactly.
I hate putting that inside, so just for that, I can. Fair enough to have.
Okay,
the whole
which
thing in
technique
one.
do you use, by the way? I normally do the one where I fold it
don't
inside
know.
out, and then I put my hand in, and then I grab the two ends, and then put it.
Yeah,
out.
something like that. It depends
that-
a
is
little
that-
bit on the
yeah.
cover. I think. I don't know. It's just somehow I get it through, and then I'm like, all right, let's go and take a margarita or something now.
I once had like one of my friends did the weirdest thing. He would fold it into a burrito first, and then he would put it on, and then he would like fold it out, and it magically works. And I'm still unsure how it works.
Was he part of the burrito?
No.
Okay,
But he would,
sounded
do
sounded
something
like he
weird.
was wrapping himself into it, and then like a magician coming out of it, all folded and perfectly
I mean, that
together.
would be
But
fun.
yeah,
But no, sadly not.
yeah. Sorry if I distract with my fly swatter, but I'm super annoyed at
You got to
these
get a couple.
guys.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You
All
have
right.
flies, just.
I live on a farm with a lot of horses. We don't have any
Oh yeah, that's
mosquitoes,
right.
but
That's
we
right.
have a lot
My
of flies. They
my
love the.
neighbors just got some ducks and some chickens, and
Ooh,
the fly
nice.
population in my backyard has been slowly increasing.
Now, yes, now you're gonna know the way of life on a farm, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yes. I mean,
All right.
I rather have flies than mosquitoes, to be honest. But
Oh yeah, 100%.
yeah,
Mosquitoes are the worst.
no,
Here, you guys keep talking about European stuff for a second. I'll be right back. I got something cool.
Okay.
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 What is he finding this?
I think maybe the shirts could it be?
It- Is it? No.
But what do
European things? I mean, I guess
European
we're going to
things?
unite.
What? Yeah. Or talking about European things. We too. Oh yeah. Are you nervous for your talk, by the way, or are you like, yes, let's go?
Well, we haven't prepared it yet, so I don't know.
You haven't what?
Okay, so the talk is ready, but we haven't what's it called actually prepared the talking part of it.
Ah, right. You haven't tried it out yet.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. We haven't done a trial run, so
yeah.
we still have to do that. Don't know. I mean, either it's gonna feel totally nervous or it's gonna be totally fine. I mean, there's like 190 people or something.
That. Yeah, that's enough to make it like yeah. Is it like in a? Do you get upgraded to a bigger, or if everybody registered, or how does it work?
I think they can't really upgrade it to a bigger, but they can schedule extra.
Ah, right. Because there was already one that I was full when I tried to register. I
Oh
think it
wow!
was performance tips or something, and I was fine. It it is my that's
Well,
my expertise profession already right now. So I don't think they will tell me much that I already don't know.
oh, there we go.
I guess right thing. Yes.
Yeah, the hot
Ooh, hot bath, hot boy.
nice. It's even
The
the
hot
same
bath
color
shirt.
as the expert shirts will be.
Expert shirt. Oh, so we're gonna look like we're experts.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which we know will fool everybody since we don't know squat.
Oh, that's
You're
pretty cool.
muted. You're muted.
Yeah, we got the Hot Path shirts in the mail.
Woohoo!
Just came, and then also
Oh,
Hot Path
stickers.
stickers.
Oh wow!
So I got a bunch of these. So yeah, if you see me at Unite, I got a whole stack of these.
Oh damn! Oh, I definitely want one.
You can have like 5.
Thanks.
I never know where to put my stickers. I like stickers, but I don't know where to put them. It's like it's so not permanently, but it's so such a commitment to put it on somewhere. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Like
Like for instance, I would never put it on my computer, and I know so many people that do that.
yeah,
but-
I was gonna say you should get a MacBook and put it on there.
Sticker bomb. And then that's what the cool kids call it, right? That was a proper one, huh? Yeah, damn, that's
Yeah, for like the longest time in college, like I kept my laptop like perfectly no stickers, and everyone had all their stickers on that and everything. And then just like one day I decided, I was like, you know what? Like I'm just gonna go crazy, and I got like 100 stickers and just like literally did the sticker bomb across the whole entire thing.
yeah, nice.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I could contemplate doing it on the back of my phone. That would be fine.
On the back of your phone. Ooh,
Do you have a
that's
case on your phone?
way high.
No.
equipment.
Wow,
Yeah.
crazy.
I actually realized that when I don't have a cover on my phone, I drop it less than I did when I had a cover on my phone.
Well, I got one of those like crazy thick like OtterBox cases. I can just like.
But you got
I used to have that.
carpet on the inside in that's
Yeah,
America thing.
It's carpet. It's not, like, super
No.
thick
I
carpet,
actually
though.
grew up with that as well. Like
Yeah, but
I had a
that's
carpet
just
similar
weird
to
if
that.
you're European to have that. We we have like a wood floor or tiles or something like that in you have like
In the place I grew up, Jylland, pretty much every house you will see is wood entirely except for actual what's it called, like bedrooms. So if it's a room where you have a bed, then it's supposed to have carpet flooring.
Well, but in the bedroom, I guess that's reasonable. But in the
Yeah,
whole
that's how mine
house,
is. I got carpet just in the rooms, and then like in the kind of kitchen and living room and stuff, it's all. I don't think it's real hardwood. It's like a fake hardwood kind of thing, but
Is it similar to this floor? Because this is not real wood.
yeah, it seems to be. Yeah, yeah, like it has the wood look, but it's like
Yeah, it's like laminated.
right.
right? Yeah. Well, I think it's. I was weirded out by the carpet floor in I don't know where I was, somewhere in the US, and they had carpet flooring everywhere, and I was like, what do you do if you spill something? They're like,
Oh yeah, no,
you clean it up, and I'm like, it's gonna be stuck there until like you clean it with a fucking like steam or
Yeah, to get
something.
the steam vac. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a whole problem.
That's just weird to me. But I digress or something. I don't know.
But yeah, in Denmark you would never see it in the kitchen, for instance. Never.
Yeah, in Sweden you won't see.
I don't
it
think I've ever
anywhere.
seen carpet in a kitchen.
Like that would be
that
so
would be-
quickly
that
so
would be-
disgusting.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
No.
No.
All right.
Right.
So yeah, with that, we got a couple miscellaneous announcements to go through here real quick. So as we've kind of been alluding to, we got Unite coming up in just a little bit over, what is it? That'll be
2 weeks?
12 days. 12 days until when it starts. Yeah.
Damn.
So just less than 2 weeks. We got Unite Barcelona.
So
Yeah,
close.
very excited. All three of us, of course, are going to be there in our Hot Path Show shirts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that the
Yes,
first time you
indeed.
guys meet in person then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will be.
Yeah.
Because yeah, so
Damn.
far I've met Danny in person, and Danny has
Danny
met
in
Tobias
person.
in person. But
Yeah.
Yes. A couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
wait, Danny, was the only time I met you in person at Unite last year?
Yes, it was.
Okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Unite. There's going to be a lot of talks. Danny, of course, you have a talk going on. If you want to remind the people about what your talk is, feel free to let them know.
Sure. Yeah. The talk is called "Connecting the Dots. Let's make a game in entities." It will be a talk about all the different concepts in Dots. Enough beginning concepts to get you started making a game in entities. We will take example in a game that we made, and hopefully it will be a lot of fun. And we will slowly build up, different concepts, and hopefully also clear away some of the falsehood and many wrong assumptions that people can have about the way that it works, and also make it a lot simpler. So that's the idea.
Yes, definitely. And I'm trying to pull up. Do you remember what time it is? I think is it Thursday at 3 p.m.?
It sounds correct. It's definitely a first day.
Connecting the dots. Let's make a game with entities. Thursday at 3:15 p.m. CEST.
Yes.
So yeah, looking forward very much to that one. There are some other interesting talks related to dots there. There is going to be a City Skylines one, some competitive multiplayer ones, some other optimization talks. There's a lot of good stuff. Unfortunately, some of them kind of like overlap with each other. So, I don't know if I'll be able to make all of them in person. And yeah, as for it being posted online, I'm not sure about that. I feel like some of them will be
at least from what I know, the talk that I'm doing will be posted.
awesome.
If it won't be, I will complain and figure out what's going on and have someone else.
Cool. Yeah, because
I'll reenact the talk here. So.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the past they've done a pretty good job at putting a bunch of the Unite talks up online. I know for sure, like the keynote is going to be streamed live when that is happening, so that will be available for y'all to watch live. And then, yeah, hopefully it won't be too long after for all the other stuff to get posted. But yeah, it's going to be definitely a good time. I think I think myself and a couple other creators are going to be part of some kind of like meet and greet thing happening on that Wednesday, kind of during like around the time of like the little welcome party that's going on. Also, I think I'm going to be part of like some student Q&A type panel going on Thursday, so that should be fun as well. And then Danny, I'm not sure. I don't think we've quite finalized it, but it sounds like we might be on a live stream together at some point.
Yes, I think I might know the time, but we'll see before confirming.
Okay.
Might know the time.
Yes. Well, the thing is, even if they were to give us a time, historically they can change that number.
Yeah.
So they can or can't. Can, I guess.
They can. Well, they can until they've confirmed it. When they say they have confirmed it, then it is in the books. But until that point,
Right.
It's
Yeah. All right, I will stand by side and be a cheerleader. Woo!
yeah.
Let me get this up. So yeah, and then next up, do just want to remind you all that JetBrains has a Game Dev Day coming up this October, October 9th and 10th, and I'm going to be speaking at it. And let me go ahead and post a link to this here. This is completely free to join. It's going to be kind of live streamed on their YouTube channel and stuff like that. And so yeah, I'm going to be doing a little Dots talk on there. It's again going to be kind of more towards like the general game dev audience. So kind of be going into like a kind of high level overview about Dots, some of the cool stuff about it, and some of the benefits of it, of course. Also, the Unity Asset Store has another sale going on right now. It's called the Surprise Sale. I don't know why they decided to call it that, but
it's a surprise.
It seems kind of funny. They're just like, surprise, we have another sale. That's kind of like the...
There's never always a sale. You should always feel like you're making a good deal whenever you're buying. And I think that's a sales tactic that
exactly.
works. Exactly. I think
it's a classic sales strategy.
So yeah, there are a bunch of stuff going on. Sale pretty much 50% off for the most part, and you can get an extra 10% off using code September. I have a link in the description of this video for that if you do want to check that sale out. Also, do want to mention that a good friend of the channel, Code Monkey, has a sweet Unity Dots course right now. Tobias and I were actually talking about it. Was it last week that we discussed this about the
yes,
animation?
Something confused us. I don't remember what.
Yeah, just kind of how he was doing some of the like actually swapping out the meshes and stuff. Because basically the approach he took was kind of like a flipbook technique almost, like similar to like a 2D animation sprite sheet, but with 3D meshes. So he's basically like took snapshots of the meshes in the different, essentially animation poses, and then it's just kind of like cycling the mesh through them basically. So he put up a little video on his YouTube channel. Tobias and I had a nice little chat about it last week. Danny, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, which approach does he actually use for doing that flipbooking?
So yeah, that's what I don't know quite yet.
Because there is plenty of horrible ways to do it, and there's one correct way.
What?
I know.
Are you sure only one way?
Well, it basically, if you're doing anything that isn't gonna end up just changing the mesh index or material index, then you're doing it wrong. There is an index on the render mesh, on the material mesh info that tells you which index in the render mesh array to draw.
Yeah.
If you're not using that index and that being the one that you're flipping for your flipbook animation, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, yeah, so I haven't checked that out specifically yet because I just got into his Unity Dots course. He, by the way, gave me an affiliate link for it. So if you do want to purchase his Unity Dots course, there's a link in the description of this, which is my basically affiliate link. So, I may receive a small little bit of commission if you do decide to purchase any one of his courses from that. But I just kind of started going through it, and it is like a really good, like, starting from zero, Dots experience, introduction into what Dots is, the benefits of it, how to set up a project, all the, very small little, important details that, he does. And I think he's been so far doing a really good job at like, explaining why things are the way they are, such as like, having the kind of like authoring view and the scene view, and like, why things aren't kind of moving and how to switch that over to runtime view, just going over like little things like that. So I've just kind of started going through it. It's been really good so far. But yeah, I know in the video at least that he posted on YouTube, he was saying that he was kind of like heavily relying on blob assets to kind of do some storage of, I'm not sure if it's like the different meshes or what, but yeah, it sounded like he was using blob assets quite heavily on that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of the exact approach he ended up taking when I get to that point in the course. But yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely go ahead and check that out. And yeah, do also want to remind you all that you can support us over on Patreon as well as through YouTube memberships. We do have some fun bonuses if you do choose to support us there. So I recently put up a video about kind of virtual reality, my thoughts on kind of the industry, where it is right now and where I think it could be going. Also did a Q&A video where I answered a couple questions related to some ECS topics. So one about using ECS in game objects, and another one about using multiple worlds and some of the different applications for that. So that was pretty good. And then also at some of the higher tiers, I have access to some behind the scenes stuff. And this one, I decided to give a little sneak preview about a Vampire Survivors clone that I've been working on, and just kind of give a little bit of insight into kind of the progress on that, as well as kind of my plan for what I end up wanting to do with that, because I think it's kind of unique, and hopefully it ends up working out well. And then yeah, of course, we're going to be having new bonus videos each month that you can look forward to. So yeah, anyways, with that, I think we can get into some more kind of ECS specific topics. Tobias, did you said that you were maybe considering giving us a little quick tip here this week? Were you able to come up with something?
I have one.
You're stuttering a bit here.
I have one idea. But so first of all, I thought about showing the dot bytes thing you can do with the byte asset in Unity. But then I realized that's the source code for sulfur, and I should not show that here, obviously, unless I ask the guy. And so I don't have
do that without permission. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, of course. But it's like the code won't reveal the game or anything like that. It's just
right.
But and then I realized I am not sure if we already talked about this, and this is the eye collector. And we talked about that in the Unity physics.
I think we've hinted at them. Like, they've definitely come up, but I don't think we've really like talked about them in good detail.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, for me, this is just not some completely unprepared. I was just looking through and like, is there fun stuff? But I've worked so little in dots the last like half a year because of my consulting thing.
Right.
That I'm rusty. I mean, I could go through what I've done with the custom eye collectors in just read instructions.
I mean, we did actually on the show, now that I remember, when I talked about my game jam, Nordic Game Jam, that was a good chunk of it. We talked about the collectors because
that's right. Yeah,
there was so much performance concerns without using them. So we did talk about
right. So then I failed you. I don't know. I don't
still bring them up because we're talking about them.
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about them.
Yeah, I use them for like because there's I think an interesting concept to think about here is like to make stuff fast. I think there's two general approaches you can have. Like when you have established code, it's like either you sort of make the thing you want to. Oh, did you? Yeah.
I got an example here.
Yeah, but like a conceptual thing, I think that is reasonable. That is good to think about. It's like either you can make stuff like very very like fast, so you have the same thing doing linearly very fast, like bursted, or you have everything is an array and you just go through that array and you do something very very simple with that, and you can do that super fast if you know use SSE, parallelized execute, not yeah. Well, I'm losing my words, but when you're doing like 8 or 4 things at the same time, and you're making sure that you're going wide on everything that you can. uh, but the other like strategy is like early outs. So can you figure out that you're already about, you don't need to continue with whatever you're doing, you should go with the next iteration or the next loop or whatever. And do you guys agree that I feel like a physics engine is such a, with collision and stuff and like searching for the object, is such an inherently random access type of a problem to solve, that early outs are a lot of the time a better solution than to try to make it more of a linear problem, because sometimes you cannot make it more of a linear problem. You shoot your damn projectile just in a random direction in your FPS, and you can't really predict in a linear way what you need to traverse with that ray. So it's better to do some early out type of a deal where you like, as soon as you can think I'm in the wrong place or I've already figured out this is the one, you should spend some more branching possibilities along the lines of your execution code to like, oh, maybe I'm already done, and early out as fast as possible. And that's how you should view eye collectors, I think. Do you guys agree?
I mean,
Tell me, Danny.
yes, no.
I want a disagreement here if we can have one.
The problem is, it's not like I so much disagree. It's more that I almost think whenever I look at physics problems, it's never where I actually notice the performance concern is. Like the performance concerns are always if you make too many things, try to have collision instead of using something like a trigger or a collection sort of approach. Um, or if you are fully like for instance, we have I trigger job events, something wacky. That
I
one.
trigger event. Yeah, I trigger event
It-
job. I think
yeah,
is-
there's one for collision and one for triggers. Those two often end up in the problem that, oh, now you have to have colliders on that code, and so and also it's a job, so therefore you can't really do any early outs, and it
What
becomes
do you
like
mean
a
it's a job
whole
you can't do any early outs?
because, well, okay, you can do returns, sure, but you can't really what's it called? It's like a system API .query versus a iJob entity. It's not like one is easier than the other per se, but it's still like you can do more with the system API query just because you have both a continue and a return, whereas you only
Okay.
have one of them with a what's it called, iJob.
I'm so it's more expensive to do early out than one would, or you cannot do
Yeah,
certain type of early outs.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Fair
Well, that's
enough.
not really the case with a close hitter. You can
With the
do
what?
well, a hit collector.
A hit collector, but it's not really the case. It's what do you mean? I'm not following.
Like with a hit collector, you can like still just what's it called? I guess actually it does have the same problem. Never mind. I guess I don't know what I'm saying.
I just pulled you guys into my unprepared randomness here, and we are
Yeah,
all
yeah, you totally
on
did.
a open sea.
No, but I guess my point is still that like instead of thinking of like early outs and that sort of deal, for me at least, I've noticed a lot more of the time it's about, did you structure your physics correctly to begin with? Like, did you actually need everything to be a trigger? Do you need everything to be a collider? Sometimes it's okay to
You
just have.
just reduce the amount of stuff that you need to put into this structure to the
Yeah,
BVH
actually.
tree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's fair.
How many things do you actually need to put into the BVH tree is what often matters.
Yeah.
And
I just realized one thing, and also to continue on that thought, like I've had some issues with the performance because of the amount of enemies my game had, and I am pretty sure I did the reasonable optimized version of the scene collision wise, the representation of it. And for me it helped by thinking, and I guess one could view it like, oh, if you're using eye collector, then you can like put the filtering code as deep into the loop as possible. That's a way to think about it too, I guess. So you don't need to query for something, you get a list and then sort it, or do other things. You can like do some custom filtering code and put it right into the inner loop and make it as fast as possible, and do that filtering as early into the system as possible, and also early outs in that place too then. And I think like yeah, one should think about that, I guess. Had not think about that, because I remember when I did a sort of a fog of war that was like a light from the characters out, and then everything around the character through like everything that was a collision through like a shadow fog of war type of a deal in battle, right? I can maybe find a screenshot of it, and I was trying to make that algorithm that basically draws the fog of war as like shadows from the center of the character out. And I did a super naive implementation where I tried early out, and like I tried to do like, oh, how I already know this is the wrong place to be. I early out, and I did all of this trying to if statement out myself out of the loop to do less calculation. And then my friend did another implementation which was pure straightforward like that, and it was like 1,000 times faster and 0 early outs. And I was my mind was completely blown. I had no idea that was such a big deal. And then I've thought about it like that all the way until and then I collector or something like that. I'm like, well, early out, like it literally called early out on first hits, as you can override, and like you can get it very, yeah, you have that one. And then you're like, well, when is it good, when is it bad? And my thought was that collision, I think, is inherently enough of a random access memory type of a problem that early outs is a good idea. But yeah, that's a mouthful. I think I'm just going through the whole context in my brain also talking about it. I think that's how I view it, at least. So I can
What?
And he disappears. What was his conclusion?
It's like, I have the answer to all of our problems.
Stay tuned in the next episode. What happened?
Do you want to know what happened? I just were about to pull my mouse over to my other screen, and I accidentally pressed the back button while hovering over the StreamYard, and it just backed out. And I'm like, all right, I guess I backed out of the stream then.
That was
Perfect timing too.
perfect timing.
I don't know where I was or what I was about to say. I was gonna.
You're about to give us all the answers to all of our problems.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was gonna show. Oh, I can just go through. This is we can wrap. Unless you want to add stuff, I can just go through all of the different versions of this I made for to like open up maybe some ideas about what you can do with it. See here.
Yeah, I think before you do that, real quick, I just want to give a little bit of context about what a collector is for people who
Oh yeah.
may not kind of be super familiar with them.
I'm terrible.
So this is kind of like how I'm using it here in this particular one. So this is a closest hit collector is what it's called. It's actually one of the built-in collectors. I think there's two. There's a closest hit, and then is it all hits is the other kind of built-in one.
I think there might even be an any.
Yeah. Yeah, actually you're right, because the any is, we can go into that, but the closest, so the purpose of a collector is you can kind of like do a physics query So in this case, I'm using overlap box custom. And then you'll see in here, I have a reference to my collector, which is this closest hit collector. So the query does this overlap box. So basically like takes a box, looks for any colliders that kind of match some of these properties that I've set. So like here's kind of the position, rotation, size of this box. Also, I can pass in a collision filter. So I say, detect these types of entities, but not these types of entities. So I'm kind of doing this like overlap box. And then the collector is basically a way to further filter out the results of that. So, if I do this big overlap box, I may end up getting, 10, 100, 1,000 entities returned. Now, in this case, I want to just find the closest entity to, basically the center point of that. So what I'm using here is this closest hit collector. And then you can see in here, what it does is there's this kind of add hit method here. And then it goes through and then basically just sees if the current hit is closer than, the previous closest hit. And then if it is, then it's just going to kind of like store the, current values for that, that particular hit. So that basically when it's done adding all the hits to this collector, I can figure out what the closest entity's position is by just looking at the collector.closest hit, and the position value is just stored right in there. You also have access, directly to that entity and some other things about, how far away it was and all this. So it's basically just a way to kind of like filter things out. Now the cool thing with these collectors are you can create your own custom collectors. So maybe you want to have, say, the furthest hit collector. So you say like, what's the furthest entity away within this defined range? Well, you can basically define your own collector, and then you would just write your own add hit method that just basically does the opposite. So if the hit dot fraction is greater than the max fraction, then you can set that as the furthest away one. And then so here's the other one, the all hits collector, and then so here's any hits collector. Basically the difference with this one is you see there actually is no add a hit because we have this early out on first hit. So basically it does that query and then just basically finds essentially some random one, whichever the first one in that list happens to be, is going to be set to the result of that. So you can kind of like, figure out the actually, is it in, I clicked, so there's this add hit. So basically it just kind of returns true essentially, and then just sets the hit, I suppose. But Tobias, is there? What did you want to say on collectors as far as some of the?
I was just gonna just show a few examples of how I use it, and now I'm scrolling through mine, and I think I duplicated some features, but just like to show example of how it can look. And let's see if I crash now, as sometimes I do when I share my screen.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
you
Maybe
survived.
is that good enough? Big enough?
Zoom in one more click.
One more click.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I got all but entity hit collector, and here's the thing where like a thought between it. So this basically it takes in like you can specify two different entities which you should skip if you find them, and then and also ignore a specific tag. So I have a custom tag, and I'm just making and I had a little bull like, should I skip the margin collider tag? And like here's a philosophical question between like very data oriented design versus like object oriented dynamic design. And like if this was a less more object oriented, maybe somebody would be like, this needs to be generalized, let's put in a list of entities. Like, no, do what you need. You only need maybe two. Maybe if you find a way, you even need four. Just put four.
Why is it not a
there.
tuple? Why is it?
Okay, it could be structured differently, I guess. But honestly, like I've seen so so many people just putting in lists everywhere as soon as there's like could be two, and you're like, no, just you can have two variables, it's fine. It's like it's
It's fine.
normally you won't be like do scaling this anyway. It's like I don't even know if I use the second entity filter that much. But yeah, I just create this, and I'm not exactly sure what I use it for nowadays. Um, I use it to skip the ground entity. So yeah, I never used the second entity. It's probably been refactored out. There's somewhere I'm looking for something with a collider cost, and I just don't want to hit the ground. I don't care about the ground. That's basically what I'm doing with it. Um, and then I have another one, all, but this I think is maybe a duplicate. I'm not sure. I don't remember. No, it's a raycast hit, so it's different than the
Oh,
other. Yeah.
Different. There's distance hit and raycast hit are the different kind of types you can use for the collectors.
Yes, so this is basically that you throw into. So I don't know if physics, Nvidia's that's the standard or
PhysX.
old PhysX. Yeah,
Different
super
than
annoying.
physics.
Why did you do that, Danny? Why did you name it Unity Physics?
Oh yeah, why I did that? I
Yes,
think it's in that
personally.
library might be older than I am.
At a
No, I
company
mean
that he doesn't
Unity
even work at.
Physics. Why did you name it Unity Physics and not like Unity's moving parts?
I think you can realize that yourself why it's not called that.
No, okay. Anyway, this thing where you can like actually filter raycast hits into deep in the loop that finds your raycast hit. I'm pretty sure you cannot do this at all with the collector in PhysX, but I'm not sure actually. I never looked. As you guys are not exposing it, I'm pretty sure in Unity's old school physics library, right? Old school physics API. Do you know what I mean, Danny?
Say it again.
This
brain
type of
wasn't paying attention.
eye collector with a raycast hit, that's not something that can be done in PhysX with the old Unity API, right?
Not to my knowledge. We should
I
at some
was
point
never
get a physics
familiar
person
with-
on here.
I was personally, I've never been familiar with collectors until Dot's physics.
Yeah, me too. So I was just considering, like, for a second there, maybe we're like being all proud and like this is nice dots, and then it already existed in physics, but I don't think so. Anyway, so
I think
this
internally it does. I think internally that's how we implement some of the features. But
yeah, probably, but also like a lot of the raycast things are probably kind of like straightforward APIs in physics. I would assume that you don't only wrap months. I mean, there's only so many.
there's a lot more than just wrapping internally. I can say.
I implemented physics into Batterite's game engine, and I was like, yeah, that was kind of one-to-one a lot of the APIs for me. But maybe I didn't do much with raycast. That's fair. So, but the other parts was kind of not that it's easy to implement. Like I just did it for a prototype, but like it was.
I'm sure it would be easy to implement today in Unity as well. But because of a lot of things, it's not.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. This is basically a raycast that just skips a specific entity. So I'm like, I want a raycast. I don't want to hit a specific thing, and then I just do that. And this is something where I just avoid some specific thing. I think I just avoid the spawned entity that I'm spawn. Yeah, whatever. It's kind of straightforward. You put in the skip entity here, and on the callback that gets called from the when it's tried to add a potential hit, like, is it entity? Then you skip it. Otherwise, you just continue with a normal. And this is, code that you can view how Unity have done it. So you can like basically copy out one of the like closest hits thing and then continue. PM done in real time evaluating how much he can. Yeah, fair enough. That's true. And I also have a collision collector, which is just maybe probably used in like the example that Yanni talked about earlier, where you're just looking for something with like a sphere collider or something, and you do a cast and you're like, oh, is there something inside here? And this is basically, I just look for a specific entity. I don't know if this is maybe easier done by looking at that specific entity and doing your own custom code for that, so you don't need to go through
Like
the
just
whole
doing a
collision
distance
tree.
check or something, you mean?
Yeah, but there was probably a reason for it. But you can do that still. You can do like, oh, I'm just looking for a specific entity, and maybe you want to do like a collision check with a complex shape or something. Like this, well, I'm just looking for this entity inside of this complex shape. Then you can do that instead. And then I have one that is the skip one again. I think this is a duplicated code. So, but that's what I've done, and I haven't like done a full library of this from the beginning just because it sounded nice to have. I just like, whenever I figured out that I'm just using this specific situation for it, I just threw together one of these collectors and I started using it, and I think it's a very, very nice feature, and I think people should use it. So yeah, that's some examples of how I used it.
It's a really good feature.
Yeah.
Yes.
Danny, do you have anything else to say on collectors?
Not really. No. I mean, people should use it. I've said this before
just
in the
play
2D
around with
episode.
them, and yeah, they're good. Though I do have one small thing to say on collectors. For some reason, the reason I'm using Overlap's box here is because for some reason with Overlap Sphere Custom, it wouldn't ever return anything. I don't know if that is like a bug or what was going on, but I just changed it to Overlap Box and everything works perfectly. Didn't change anything with the collision filters, and the sphere radius should have been plenty to capture the entities I was looking for.
Does it have some weird extra overload that you might need to specify? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I had everything filled out. It was really weird because it was literally just returning null. Like I said, because I have if not overlap box custom. So like if nothing overlapped, then you'll just kind of continue. So it just kept hitting that continue step. It was very, very strange.
That's weird. I couldn't tell you why that is there.
So I don't know if that was anything that you guys
That
have
should
seen,
work.
but yeah. So I don't know what the heck was going on with that. So anyways, that is that.
I mean, I think maybe another thing is also like collectors is especially good for something like if you're making the camera in your game and it's like a camera where you want it to detect collision because you don't want it to go into walls, for instance. It's much better to use one of the like overlap spheres or the algorithms, and then have like a collector if you want to ignore some objects because they're like flagpoles and you don't want it to hit into a flagpole because that would be annoying.
Right. Yeah. You can just have it go through or whatever. Like you're like, it's fine.
Exactly. It should definitely, like, a camera should never be a physics object. Like that would be way overkill.
Yeah, that's a good usage. I mean, as opposed to having a sphere overlap and getting a list out of that and then filtering that list. That's where like you can avoid that whole thing and just filter right into the tight loop instead, and get only the relevant parts in the list to begin with.
Well, with the collector, you kind of are still doing that in some cases. But I guess the advantage is you can kind of use that same logic in multiple places. Because like even if you get like a bunch of entities back and you want to find the closest one, you still kind of have to go through all of them at least once. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it depends on like you have the early outs possibilities.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, the big thing here is also you kind of want to avoid allocations, and if you can avoid allocating a list to store all the resulting entities, that's very ideal. You can just like do it directly.
It returns it. By the way, I just quickly checked the PhysX, NVIDIA's PhysX API, and it does not look like they have anything like that. They have a different type. Their filtering is different.
Okay.
So you cannot do you cannot do eye collector thing in physics, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I was just curious if it was a feature that was inside of physics, but it wasn't. I never seen it, so I don't know.
All right. Well, yeah, with that, I think we can kind of move into what I had for sort of the main portion of the show here, which I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about kind of like ECS architecture in general. I kind of have a couple topics of discussion that we've kind of sort of touched on here and there, but I think it would be good to kind of talk about these all in one kind of dedicated fashion here. And then, of course, want to open it up to the audience as well if they have any ideas of things about, hey, how would I do this in a Unity project? Or, maybe I've been doing things this way or that way. Is there a better way that you can think of? So yeah, just kind of wanted to maybe go through a couple things here. And of course, if you guys have any ideas of maybe some interesting kind of patterns that have emerged, kind of using the ECS based approach, I would definitely kind of love to hear it. One thing that I did want to start with is just kind of like something pretty simple, but I've seen some comments people kind of asking for to kind of talk about is sort of kind of like our approach to project organization in an ECS project. So, do you guys have any kind of things that you like to follow as kind of like how you typically like to organize your scripts and anything like that? So, Danny, I guess we can start with you. Is there any kind of general things you do, or it's just kind of like depends
But
on the
my
project?
general thing is I don't do it until I need it. So like I won't. I will put all my systems, all my components, everything right where I use them immediately as the time that I use them. If I need a new component, I add it to the same script that I'm currently in. And at some point, I will figure out, oh, this component is needed by multiple systems. It might actually be nice to put it into its own sort of script. And at some point, I put it in a folder and call it a day. I don't really have a strict path to follow because I don't think any path will really work for an ECS until you start like refactoring a way to the right solution. Or it also depends on a collaboration. If you're collaborating with someone and they need a specific set of things, then I will put that into a folder for itself. Sometimes have the game I don't know all the health stuff together in one folder. Like, for instance, I think it's wrong to just put a folder called components, a folder called systems, and a folder called baking, and call it a day. That's not helpful.
I definitely used to do that, and then it doesn't really make sense because you end up just kind of having like almost the same problem as if you just didn't have any folder structure at all, because everything is kind of jumbled about. Like if like you brought up health, like if you have a health authoring system or a health authoring script, a health component, and a health system, those are each going to live in 3 separate places, and then you have, say, like multiple ones of those. Now those are all kind of intertwined in between everything else, so it's like that doesn't really give you
Also,
that much project organization.
How often are you actually looking at this, like source files, like CS files? Like, you are oftentimes just in an IDE, and then you're double shifting your way to it, or you're like you're navigating through the code. You're not actually using the source files. It's so rare that you care about those in the end.
Yeah.
So that's oftentimes why it ends in one file, and it's fine.
Tobias, you look very
No,
intuitive right now. What's going on through your head?
I'm thinking through it. I don't think I have I guess there would be an argument like with the right IDE setup, you can just put every script into a single folder, and then you just like it doesn't really matter, because as Danny says, you cannot, depends on your workflow, I guess. But if you're just like doing symbol searches and just jumping through already compiled symbols, and not really need to like look through files like in itself. But I don't know. I I haven't thought about that. It feels like a little bit kind of like when I started programming with C++. You have the naming convention like M for member variable, and then underscore, and then I for integer, and then something. Because
Hungarian notation is the name for this, and it's a whole thing. Yeah.
yeah, but like I coded in that type maybe for the first 5 years of my maybe until like 2020,
Yeah, I mean, like,
2011
I
or
still do
something.
the M underscore thing. That's
Yeah.
but that's because that's actually Unity standard.
I only do the underscore. I remove the M just to make it shorter, but member.
Oh, writer will be
well,
happy. That's the writer default.
well, that
Yeah,
is
adding
that is
the M
technically
is
like
the
the
micro.
C. That is technically the C# spec
Yeah.
is to like do it that way.
Yeah, and I the reason why I started with that was because at Stunlock they used that, and that was because you can right click on a variable, a private variable that is like that, and you can like auto property, make it a property automatically, refactor the code. And if you have an underscore, it will like not add extra characters to like an at or something like that. It was something along those lines. So it's just like the way they worked on the first project. They sometimes, to track some value change, they had to make like a property and like hook something into this to the set or get function of the property. So like, where the hell is this changed or whatever? And with that underscore in the start, just a automatic refactoring in Visual Studios became much better. That's
Right.
literally the reason why I started with it, and now it's just stuck, so it
The
doesn't.
fun thing is, writer will ask you if you start typing it with an M, then it will ask you if you want to use that standard instead.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, yeah, but with the I was gonna say, like, I used the M underscore and then like a little one letter thing for saying what type of variable it was, because IntelliSense in like Visual Studio 2007 Express was not super fancy, so it was kind of nice to have that, like, so you know what variable you're working with, which is completely irrelevant problem today. But that type of a flip, when I stopped using that was also like a this feels weird. I like having my little character there to show me, and like putting not caring too much about the structure of which files go where. It's like also something I cannot come up with a good reason why, because I also just jump through like symbol searches, not
Yeah.
through actual like directory.
It is so rare that you actually like the reason
Yeah.
I go through directories is usually when I'm on GitHub and I need to press the different folders.
Yeah. I see some comment here, which I'm
Yeah.
curious about.
Okay.
Oh, we can take yours first. That was the last one. Which one did you want to take?
I mean, I noticed this one, which is like a good reason why you would want to split things up into folders, which is like using assemblies.
Components and pure sim. Oh, so he's splitting up the component from okay, and then just like having the function somewhere else in a different class or in a different file, or what? Am I completely misunderstanding this?
It's like it seems to be like components and utility functions versus systems and so
and
on.
everything. Oh, okay. Oh, he meant
When
like
using
components and their functions.
Like I think also, especially the last part that is being said, which is like when you have like it is oftentimes that you will end up having to use assemblies and setting up assembly definitions because compile times are getting slow, or because you're using external dependencies that are from other assemblies. At that point, you do need to sort of know the folder structures of other assemblies.
Oh yeah, yes, that's true. In Visual
and
Unity, that matters.
Yeah, and for instance, if you're setting up editor scripts, those need to be in their own assembly, and so that's when you start thinking about like how the dependencies should be set up, and that oftentimes does influence your folder structure. But that's
Yeah.
in the end the only thing that I really use as my determinant of how my folder structure should look is, oh, okay, I guess I need an editor folder now, and I don't want the editor stuff to go with the other stuff. So okay, those are
So you
different
do that.
assemblies, different
Yeah.
folders.
Yeah.
But that's and that's where the split then goes, right?
You should just do everything with a hashtag if Unity editor instead, and then put everything in the same.
And sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm late enough to do that.
I do
but-
that more and more nowadays. I'm like, I don't have the time to go and recompile in a new file. I don't care. I just put
Yes.
the editors.
I mean, that's where I start usually, and then I will make a build, and at some point it will yelp because of a random other reason, and then I can get lazy and put it in. But
yeah.
it all depends.
I was just curious about this. I'm splitting, authoring mono behavior and system component to have them in separate assemblies. Huh.
Oh, so you have one assembly for your offering mono behavior setup, and you have another for your system components. I suppose the reason you would want to do that is that you then have, I guess you would have one assembly which is your system and components, and then you would have another assembly which is dependent on that assembly. The whole reason you would have this one is just for offering alone, so that it doesn't need to go into builds, for instance. Like offering and mono behaviors don't need to go into the builds. It's, I guess, one reason that you would want it. And also, yeah, recompilation doesn't trigger, because the way that baking works is that baking uses a deterministic, like first and foremost, we used a deterministic building process, and baking sort of depends on it in order to know whether an assembly changed. And if an assembly did change, only then should it bake all the bakers of that assembly. So by having the bakers in its own assembly, then it will actually avoid triggering.
You said the bakers and the mono behaviors doesn't need to be included in the build, right? But like you put it on a game object and you put that into a subscene, and that subscene becomes a baked subscene. Where is this? I feel like there's some connection to the mono behavior in whatever get baked, but maybe that's the wrong way of thinking.
Yeah, no,
not that it should be. I'm just like I feel like there's some connection to it.
Well,
but maybe.
Yeah, no, because like the only reason that you have subscenes with game objects in them and mono behaviors on those is so that you can, so they can run baking and produce an entity scene file, and that's what is used in an actual
the
build.
entity scene file. Yeah.
It's what's used in an actual build, and it's also what's used when you hit play.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I never thought about that actually. That's kind of fascinating to just like, the baking, the authoring, everything around the authoring is completely irrelevant to runtime. Yeah.
So that's one part of it, and the other part, which is a really good point, is that if you can put your bakers, and actually it just matters to the bakers. No, I think it might also with the mono behavior. I can't remember the audio system here. But if you put those two at least into their own assembly, then only when you change that assembly is when rebaking of those mono behaviors bakers will it rebake them.
That might
not
be
when you just change the components and systems.
Yeah, of course.
And I guess it mostly matters if you have big bakes happening.
A lot of bakes, yeah. I this kind of like throws a completely different optimization than what I'm doing, but this makes sense for a lot of ways. But I think you and I, Johnny, talked about this a while ago. Like I just nowadays I make my mono behavior that's going to be the authoring baker component, and I name the file after that, and then all the components, all the systems that is concerned with whatever the baker is putting out is just in the same file, because I'm like, I don't want to split up I don't want to jump through 15 files to find whatever I need. If this is about player health, then I have the player health baker, and I have the player health component, and I have the player health system all in the same file. I don't know. Is that how you do it sometime?
Yeah, I mean, I often end up doing exactly that.
Yeah, but that and you, Johnny?
Yeah, so that's something that I kind of started doing a little bit more recently. Like I think if you maybe have seen some of the stuff that I've done in the past, it was very much everything was separated out. Like an authoring component. Each component would have their own script, and I just end up having tons and tons and tons of class files, basically just kind of for no particular good reason. But yeah, now I've kind of started adopting the methodology of kind of like having one authoring component and then all the related components in there and related systems, and that seems to actually be working pretty well. I've definitely noticed as I've kind of started building. I've been doing this quite heavily in this .survivors project that I've been working on, and I've noticed there's definitely some scripts that are starting to get kind of long just because I'm like adding a bunch of systems to them. They're having a bunch of components and stuff, and then it's like kind of starting to maybe get to the point where I'm kind of like, where is that one particular thing located? And if I don't always remember the name, I can't look through the class files and like look at the names of the class files to like see which exact one it is. So I end up having to do a little bit of hunting around, but it's still not that difficult, to just kind of like do the shift search and then just kind of start typing a couple things out and be like, oh yeah, that's what it's called, and then I can go to that. So there are a little bit of minor inconveniences, but I think for the most part it seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, having one code file for every component, that's hardcore. That's like I don't know.
It's really really hardcore. Like, it's gonna be so small files.
Original Doom was one C file. Like that's like the
imagine having a
opposite
tech
spectrum.
component.
Literally the opposite.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking about a tech component here, having that in a singular file.
The what? The tech?
A tech component.
Oh, right.
Because then it's like just a one-liner.
Tags components did all have their singular file. Although I slowly started going like, okay, like all these are player components. These can be kind of all within the same thing. But then it just kind of makes sense now to have the authoring components and systems all together. And like for the most part, like I think entities there's not a ton of overlap between like wildly different entities. So I think like for the most part, like it's easy enough to have kind of all the related stuff within one class, and it's not like entities and some random other authoring components are now like using a bunch of the systems kind of in one class, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Makes sense. That question I don't know, Danny, if you have anything to say about this. I'm curious. And it was long ago I dealt with
basically
this.
The question is, how do y'all recommend debugging does not exist with entity command buffers on burst builds? The call stack is not useful because it does not provide information on the system that recorded the command.
I mean, obviously, I would start by trying to reproduce it in a not build, because like any production builds are always going to be harder to, debug. And then if that doesn't work out, then try to make a build that doesn't have burst enabled. You can go in and remove burst. There's like an option for it. Hope that the game still runs in a semi-okay performing manner, or have a supercomputer or something. It's generally
tricky.
It generally speaking, something that's always tricky is debugging something that is not there. It's way easier to debug something that is there than
true.
the lack of something, because sometimes you don't even have some like breakpoint to hit. Like what do you then do?
Yeah, that's a fun sentence. It's easier to debug something that is there. Yeah, that makes sense. And like I've never thought about that, but there's sometimes we're just looking for, why is this not happening or exists or whatever? Why is this not? And you're
that is
where do I even
all
start?
The problems I have to fix. Like, the difficult problems are never, this thing is here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I remember having this issue a few times, and I can't remember anything but just like printing a shitload of stuff and trying to in the context of if you need to have it burst on, but like printing a lot of stuff to like see some health checks, like what was executing just before, where am I, stuff like that could help.
Yeah, I think the one of the difficult things with entity command buffers is just that like the entities, they like kind of have like an invalid version number, essentially like a temporary invalid or index number. So it can be kind of like difficult to, yeah, figure out what that kind of means. But I guess, yeah, like you were saying, if you still have some, you're printing out some kind of like intermediary steps, like, printing out, before this command buffer records and after this command buffer executes. So you can kind of see like, okay, this error appears between these two debug statements. So I know that it's in this system. Like that kind of can give you some ideas of like where to look. So if maybe you didn't know, again, like you say, you didn't know the system that was being recorded the command, that could kind of be one way to at least narrow it down. And then from there, maybe you can kind of look at your code and figure out if the problem is like ends up being kind of obvious, or kind of do some extra additional debugging steps from there.
Yeah, and depending on what you're using the ECB for, we had a fun little hot path clip called "You shouldn't use entity command buffers," because I don't think people should use entity command buffers in a lot of cases.
It's surprisingly often that you can go around it in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. And like for instance, you can, if the point of your job or whatever is using the entity command buffer is to create a set of things to destroy, then it could construct a native list instead. It could construct a native queue. It could construct whatever else. It could just set some enableable components. And then on the main thread, you can do the entity manager call version of that. And it's going to be oftentimes more performant if you do it that way. Because an entity command buffer is literally just a deferred set of commands, and it's not going to be, it doesn't do any batching. Entity command buffer doesn't do any batching, so it's not actually faster than anything you can do yourself manually. So oftentimes and the thing is that's easier to debug. A native list is easier to debug because you don't have this deferred entity that is not an entity sort of situation going on. But yeah, no, that problem that we just saw on screen is a very difficult one.
The I don't know if there's a way to link it, but I went through my way of doing data oriented events or event system in that sort of just produce.
That actually was another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about as like kind of one of our architecture topics, is kind of like different approaches to events in ECS, because it is kind of an important topic in games, because things happen when you walk through a door. You want like
things
confetti
happen
to explode or whatever,
Yes.
or some UI to pop up on screen. Like, there are things kind of happening. So I think it's kind of like an important topic to talk about. But what did you want to say on that, Tobias?
Yeah, but before we get into that,
Yeah.
I just also quickly want to say that about that issue is also very classic that you end up in. I put in an entity that will not exist when I want to destroy it. Like when you destroy an entity in an entity command buffer, there is a chance that something else also chose to destroy that thing, and then it conflicting. That's sort of why you want to have sometimes the manual list approach, because in a list at least you could have checked, hey, did I already destroy it?
That's the thing, that couldn't you like add something in the API where you can like mute already destroyed, already like I am trying to add component to an entity that doesn't exist, and like, oh yeah, who cares if it's destroyed, it's already
Just
killed,
skip it kind of thing.
like skip it. Is that something that's
I mean, I wish
Okay,
It
fair
seems
enough.
like it could be a bit of a slippery slope, though.
Yeah, there is a slippery slope there.
Like it
I
is good to
mean,
kind of have
again,
error
I
messages
I
like that
don't
sometimes.
recommend using entity command buffer. I recommend
But
staying away from it so often.
yeah, but you know how in the beginning when everybody used uh, world dot some I don't remember. It was now we have the default game object injector world thing that's super long, and that was
World dot default game object injection worlds. Yep,
yes.
I'm well aware of this one. Yeah.
Instead of the world dot current or active or whatever it was before, I don't remember. And
World,
like
the
everybody
only
used
world in this game.
yes, and everybody used that, and I think I have a remembering of Joachim Ant or somebody explaining on stage like we rename this because people using it and they should not be using it. So maybe you can the same thing with this like command buffer versions where
Oh
you
yes, I should
can where
rename
you
entity command buffer
You
to
mean end
very slow
simulation
deferred
entity
entity
command buffer
manager.
system?
okay, one at a time. What did you say, Danny?
I just say that I should rename entity command buffer to very
Do,
slow deferred entity manager.
yeah, maybe. What did you say, Johnny?
I said, you mean end system entity command buffer system dot singleton isn't long enough for you?
That one is very good.
But I meant those versions of that, like add component, but if the entity is already dead, like just ignore it. Like can be add component, but if it's already destroyed, ignore the error. That could be the long. So you're like when you're typing it out, you're like, okay, this is a weird function. I should not use it.
Yes.
That could be the case. So then you can add
yeah,
it to
no,
the
that
API.
could work, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Do not use entity command buffer, please, for everything.
That's a good name.
Sorry.
I will go in and rename it to that.
Name it to do delete later entity command buffer.
Yes.
I actually did rename. No, not rename. I created a function recently called ensure all world entities are made correctly. _ delete this ASAP.
Nice. Yeah, gaming. Okay, Johnny, you had an architectural thing.
Yeah, well, actually,
Yes.
kind of so tagging off of like what Danny brought up about destroying entities, and this is kind of one thing I think you and I had talked about a couple weeks ago, Danny, is kind of the approach that I was kind of originally taking was basically adding a tag component to each entity that I wanted to destroy on a given frame, and then I'd basically have a system at the end that iterates through all of the entities with that tag, and then actually does the destruction operation on them. And kind of at your suggestion, I've now moved that over to be a flag. So essentially, every entity that can be destroyed has a destroy entity flag set to false by default, and then whenever I want to destroy an entity, I can just set that equal to true in whatever system. Obviously, the main advantage of that is I don't have any, I don't need
changes.
no structural changes. I don't need to use entity command buffers to set that flag. I can easily do that from any job or system or whatever. And then again, I still have that system at the end of the frame, and that's just kind of that one essentially source of truth of where is the only place that I'm calling destroy entity. So like nowhere else in my code base I'm calling destroy entity, so I don't run into that problem of having some invalid entity reference or whatever. Like all that stuff can kind of be handled in that destruction system essentially. So that's kind of a little bit of a newer approach, just a slight variation on what I was already doing. But I mean, the flags approach has been really great. I've kind of liked that a lot. I did find it a little bit weird at first about saying like, every entity now has a destroy entity flag, but it's set to false. So that was kind of like a little bit of a weird thing.
Yeah, I do the opposite. I do is alive.
That's
because it also means that I can then in my iJob entities for the ones that want to destroy it, I can just query for enabled ref RW, I don't have to add any what's it called with options.
Right. Yeah. You don't need to add to add the ones that doesn't have it
Yeah,
activated. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, but I am doing exactly the same version in the now very much on hold project Chicken Stew that I. But this is what it looks like in just read instructions. So basically, I don't remember exactly why it looks like this with the inner linked entity group loop like this, but for some reason I made it like that. Maybe like this is 3-4 years ago now, so probably. Uh, but yeah, I'm doing exact same thing, but this is a component tag I'm just adding, and then in this is like the story entity sync in the first thing in the initialization system group, and I just clear them out. And oh yeah,
basically you queue up the destruction operations in the frame, and then like the next frame after that tag has been added,
yeah,
basically at the beginning of that next frame, that's when you actually do the destroy entity operation, right?
However,
yeah,
you're
and
doing it in a very slow way here with
yeah,
the
I know, but
command destroy
that's
entity.
that's why. But I remember having some problem with this, and I'm sure that this is there's a way to do this in a proper way without entity command buffer. Believe me, I understand that. But for me, it was somewhere, and it hasn't. It never showed up in my profiler, so I really didn't need to go back to it. But nowadays, I would completely rethink this and not have entity command buffer. But and also, like, I'm doing the getting destroy entity commands from the network here also, where I do stuff with it. I don't remember, but and then I just delete them straight away after here. But yeah. And this is just a little like this. This is how much I shove my stuff together. I just like, oh, this is general components
Now
that I
imagine
need.
those are each one file. So
Yes, yes, yes. I just shove so many things into the same file. I'm just like, this is stuff I need. This is stuff I need. This is stuff I need. I just endless of random stuff, and I'm still like jumping through too many more files than I would want to. So maybe I'll just put everything more in fewer files in the next project. Who knows? Anyway, so that's how it could look. And this one, just to see here, has like references in the whole goddamn project. Yeah, you can see. But yeah, and I am a sinner. I'm sorry, Danny. I use a ton of command buffers.
you really do. Holy,
Yeah,
you're the
yeah.
reason I
I mean,
should rename
to be
it.
fair, I think there was a little bit heavier reliance on entity command buffers earlier on in
Yes, that was.
ECS's kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
there was also a period of time where the thinking was we will just make it fast and do the right batching,
right, yeah,
and do the right batching, and it does the right thing. And
yeah.
I
But
don't know why that was the thought, because that's the very opposite of being data oriented. Like we will do the data oriented thing for you, so you don't have to. But that's not
yeah, that's
data
fair. That's
oriented at
fair.
that point.
That should be,
Um,
yeah. But by the way, a big reason why I did this with the command buffers was that I started on that, back in 2020. So that's, quite a while ago. Maybe also some of this code is written in 2019. And then when I had when I profiled and had to fix, then all of the stuff that actually is like a big performance hit because of entity command buffer, that has moved over to my data oriented event system that I showed off a few months ago. So the high throughput things where command buffer would really choke it, that's already moved over to a different system. But there was like, oh, I get 1 billion of these. All right, let's not delay the game for 4 more months. So you just convert the big offenders, and then you move on. That's
And also, I think one of the reasons for that is, again, kind of earlier on, one of the main kind of things you wanted to avoid was sync points. And you still kind of do want to avoid sync points, but that was kind of one of the ways where you could avoid having a bunch of sync points, is if you could just kind of use one of Unity's built-in entity command buffers, and schedule a bunch of things to
Yeah.
happen within that one predetermined sync point. Like that kind of seemed like one of the sort of recommended things to do.
Yeah,
And then
very
again,
true.
now since enableable components are a thing, then there's a lot of things that we can do with those that we don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Sync points.
I mean, the fact that we can sort of do per what's it called? Like, because we can do per archetype, we can also do per chunk copies and destructions and so on, which makes things a lot faster.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
Tobias is, I see like you're like
the flies are
laser
so
eyes
annoying.
like locked in. You're like,
you're
I'm
just
trying to pay
smashing-
attention, and I'm trying not to be fucking distracted to hell with this stuff.
Are flies considered bugs? Because in that case, you're squashing all the bugs. That's
Oh my god, I feel mortified that I didn't see that joke myself earlier. I'm in gratitude to you, Danny, for that one. Yeah, I'm
Tobias is
squashing the
killing
bugs.
bugs while programming and not programming.
Yes. I'm here burning the midline oil and squashing bugs.
Squashing bugs every waking hour of
but
the
you
day.
wouldn't want a
Yes.
robot to do it for you, because that would be.
Yeah, the squashing bugs is good for the soul.
Yes. Yeah, and your arms and shoulders get.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Next, actually, Tobias, did you want to like quickly explain kind of how your data-oriented event system works? Because it is a pretty cool kind of setup. I don't necessarily need to go too deep into it, but just kind of like if you could give us a quick high-level
Yeah.
overview. And I think we do have a more in-depth video on this on the Hot Path
Yeah,
Show
I can
Clips channel.
show a little bit quickly what's going on, but it's like it's a little bit anticlimactic when you think when you get it. So this is a abstract system base.
Anticlimactic is good. I mean, that means there's not a whole lot of complexity to it, right?
Yes, exactly. And yes, this is a system base. I already have an iSystem version of this up and running in the chicken stew, but just read instructions is gonna do for now. And this
I will
is
come hunting in the night with a fly swatter.
yes, I can post the link to this. I put it up on GitHub some time ago, and I have somebody who asked for an example implementation in the issue on GitHub, and I said, "Oh, I put something up tomorrow," and I haven't done it yet, and I feel terrible about it.
6 months later, here we
Yes,
are.
but maybe I could do it tomorrow now. Okay. Anyway, so this is like a template thingy where you like, oh, I have this thing I want to do where I want to send events everywhere. And let's see if I can find. So achievements. So you wanna wait. This is a very, very terrible example. I just realized. Give me 1 second. This thing where it shows up with the generated version of everything. I know it's tiny. It's very, very hard to deal with sometimes.
Blame Microsoft on that one. You can turn it off in the writer. You can't in Studio, to my knowledge.
I see. You're just pushing the problem forward. We can just look into this one and go through it a little bit quickly. So, but the basic point is that you inherit from this signal system, and the type that you're putting in is just a struct with the stuff that you want to communicate out from wherever you are. So, and yeah.
Yeah, no, this goes. I'm just reminded of something for later, which is I hate abstract classes versus interfaces, but we should go back to that later.
Yeah, there's a few functions in here, but this is different in the newer version. This is an old idea from but the general idea is that you make this you have this template type, and this thing, this T type is what you're going to send around. So this then creates for example, an unsafe list with everything inside. This one is the best one to have. A list of a list. So, and what you basically do is that you say like, give me a signal queue. And then you create a new queue with whatever thing you want to communicate out a bunch of. And you give this queue back to the system. We can take a look. Like, for example, boomerang. has like a damage signal. So you'd say like, oh, and this damage signal system inherits from that signal system, obviously. And this damage signal is, a native queue. And then I update my boomerang enemies, and in the update somewhere, I'm just like, oh, I hit the player, and then I queue up all the information about the hit. So you got, the entity, the position, and all sorts of things. And this is, just straight up a native queue. There's nothing more to it. And then in the, let's see here if we can find the definition of in the damage signal system, which inherits, and this is the thing that gets sent around, then you just have, this is later in the same frame, or in the next frame for that matter also, then you can, then you just, sorry, I can't find my own code. I think it's, you just retrieve. I can go back to the signal system. You just retrieve this list of native queues that all the different systems around in the frame have produced these damage events. You just retrieve them. You have the list here, and you just go through the data. It's like it's just a list you fill in with your stuff, and then later in the frame you just consume that stuff, and you can just put that into a sort of a slightly automated way. And I don't know, it feels weird to explain because there's not much more to it. You have a list, you fill it with stuff, and then you consume it later, and you just make that in a little bit of a structural way. I feel like I'm doing a terrible way of explaining this.
I mean, you're almost describing a classic command buffer.
Yeah, it's like a command buffer, but whatever the thing that is the command is like the template, and then you have like a few helper functions. So you're like, oh yeah, let me get so you can get the signal queue, and it adds it to a list that keeps the list, so you know all the different queues that you send out to the different systems, and then so you don't have to like keep track of it. You can see here if we have somewhere accumulated scene line. This one could be a good idea to look at quickly, and then I'll be done. Constrainer, camera shakes. Here, camera shake signal accumulator. A bunch of different stuff around in the frame can produce camera shakes. This thing, which is just some information about why and where the camera should shake. And then I pick them out, and then I use them to something. It's like, there's nothing. That's a way that, since camera is managed memory, then I have all of this stuff happening in different jobs that can, make the camera move. Then all of those have their own like little, we can just communicate out that we're supposed to shake the camera with just a buffer with whatever data you want to put into the buffer. And then I have this camera shake signal that just picks it up, like, okay, this is everybody who produced this data, this frame. Go shake the camera. So, but I'll post this thing into here, and people can pick it up, and it's it feels weird explaining it every time because I'm like, there's so little to it. Everything I've done is basically just helper functions and syntax sugar. There's no like logic to it that's complex.
And on that subject of helper functions and syntax sugar, now this is a system base, and it has to be because it's a class and an abstract class and everything. And the thing people then don't realize is a lot of this can still be done if you were to just use a struct and an interface. because you can use extension functions to still have all the functions of it. You can then, for the actual data, if it's low enough, then you can just use properties on the interface and accept that you implement that every time. Otherwise, you can add a struct that is that definition, and then that's your property that you add. So it still becomes one line of code that you have to add per system, which is slightly more, but at the same time, now it's an ICE system, and you can use that everywhere, and that will just work. And you can also if you were to implement an signal system, then you would also know what data you're actually inquiring. Whereas on a classic inheritance sort of model, you don't know how much you are actually subscribing to above you. You would know on a interface.
Yeah. And just to we can take.
I was just going to call out real quick that Wayne Game says there's a forum post about different ways to handle called comparing different approaches for events and dots. And Wayne Games also has a video on his channel kind of comparing some of the performance and scalability. And so, yeah, definitely would recommend checking that one out. It's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's from Philip Ahmed. We've actually had him on the channel before.
Yeah. Back on our GDC episode. Is he going to be at Unite?
I sadly don't think he will, no. Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah. But we should get him on the show again. So.
Yeah. Absolutely should.
Yes. Phil's this guy.
Tobias, did you have something else you were going to say?
Yeah, I was kind of looking at, but this is kind of a thing that I should prepare for if I should show it. But now my in the new project, everything this is the replacement. So I call it a data buffer, and then you have like this is that can live inside of an I system if I want. And does the same thing. No, let's not go here. I don't know. It was a long time ago. I wrote this code in like April, and I haven't looked at it since, basically. But suffice to say, what Dan has said, you can just do this without any remotely going around with the classes or anything like that. That's completely unnecessary in the new way of doing dots. iSystem did not exist when I wrote.
I know because you have entities for each everywhere as well. So
yes. There was entities for each did not exist when I started writing just damn,
just real old.
0.17 was not released when I started writing just read instructions. So that's how old that project is.
So, and actually real quick, I just kind of wanted to show how I'm kind of doing some event-based stuff in the Survivors project here. So I've kind of showed this before, I think, way back when I was talking about like some combat stuff in some of the earlier episodes of the Hot Path show. But I actually use dynamic buffers for this. So for this, I've called this an entity interaction. And we basically just have a Boolean field for if it's been handled already, and we have the entity for the target entity. Now this entity interaction basically lives on any entity that can like essentially interact with other entities. So one example for how we could add an entity interaction to this buffer is through like a trigger events job. So in this case, this would be like if I had a player attack and it collides with an enemy, then this is the kind of like trigger job that gets raised here. So we just kind of, do a little bit of logic to figure out, which entity is the entity being hit, which entity is the, actual attack entity. From that, we just kind of go through our interaction buffer. In this case, I've just tried to essentially ignore entities that have already been hit. So we don't add them multiple times. If like a, attack is like passing through them, it only hits them one time. That's just kind of the logic that I have for how the attacks work in this game. But then we just do an interaction buffer.add, and then we can set is handled to false, and our target entity is the entity that actually got hit. Now, once that interaction has been raised, now we can have a bunch of different systems that run based off of that interaction. So for example, here's how we would actually apply damage. So we basically go through everything that has the interaction buffer, as well as a component for damage on interaction. And this damage on interaction component, as you can imagine, it basically contains, the point value of how much damage should be applied when that interaction has been raised. So then from that, we can basically add to the damage this frame, which is another dynamic buffer, which will be kind of like actually calculate the damage at the end of the frame later on. So kind of all that happens. And then also, if we wanted to have, say, some other systems where that might play a sound effect when the damage interaction happens, or like spawn something else, we could have basically other components that kind of define some of the properties of that interaction, and we just have a system that kind of runs those there. And then the last thing that we do is after kind of the interaction system group has ran, we just cycle through all the so this is actually where it's applying damage. But yeah, there's basically one other system that I have that runs at the end of the interaction system, which loops through all the entity interactions and sets that is handled equal to true, so that now anytime a system ran, if it's already been handled, we'll just kind of skip over that. So that's kind of how I'm handling the entity interaction events in this. Did you guys have any thoughts on that kind of setup and what you think, and if there's any ways it could be improved, or if it's just kind of, works well and is just fine?
It feels like there could be a way to remove the is handled somehow, but obviously you need to keep that state around somehow. I'm just racking my brain.
So the reason for that is because I want to have, again, a list of all the entities that say that again, maybe has collided with or whatever, so that we're not adding duplicate interactions. So it kind of helps to, keep that entry in the buffer there. But again, we want to, kind of have some logic to determine if it has already been handled, so we don't, run that every time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking maybe, this is very much depending on the circumstances, but it could be enableable component or a tag or something. Could be so you get rid of that thing from some queries where you don't need to query for the already handled, and vice versa, so you don't keep it as a boolean inside of the component, and instead now my flies are sorry. That's just a thought. I don't know, that was just something, maybe you upgrade it from being from being a normal one, and then when it's handled, you tag it with handled, and then it's shows up differently in the queries, and that's how you distinguish them. But I don't know, that was just a thought I had. I don't know if that makes sense in the context.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but again, I'm just kind of storing these all in a dynamic buffer right now, so I'm not really querying for those.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah, my bad. Yeah, that's true. That's a completely different situation there.
Yeah. Danny, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, most of the things that I think when it comes to code is also, if it works, it works.
Well, this works, so.
Yeah, I mean, take a profiler to it and see if it needs changing, or work on your game more, and then at some point you might realize it needs changing.
Right. Yeah.
That's usually what provides your knowledge of when to change something.
Yeah. This is by the way a good comment. For those who doesn't know it, about the initial capacity thing.
Yes.
Which is relevant.
Basically, using dynamic buffer to because if your internal buffer capacity is set to 5, then it's basically going to take up 5 elements of the size of that a single element basically. So
Yeah. For the people who don't know, either you store this dynamic buffer inside of the chunk or you store it outside. And if you're inside, then you can specify exactly how many elements you have available before. If you add a sixth one, if you have 5 elements declared in and you have the sixth one, it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, it migrates outside of the chunk dynamically then?
I mean, if it's too big to fit in a chunk, then it will migrate outside.
Yeah, yeah. So, but you can like declare like how much you will allow to try to fit in, and then if it runs out of that, then it will move out
Exactly.
of the chunk. Yeah, yeah. So, and that's a it's like surprisingly often where you like have like just 2, like I just need to keep track of 2 or 3 or 0, because like this will be a ton. I just need to have it associated with my entity, but it doesn't need to be nowhere near any chunk. I just need this list to be associated with the entity. Then I just specify 0, so this is not in the chunk. Keep going like normal otherwise. Yeah,
Yes.
I actually
mean,
use
a very clear example case of this is a linked entity group, which used to be 8, I think, but is now 0.
Oh, right. That's
so
can you
many.
explain why and how that went about?
Because obviously you get a linked entity group anytime that you bake a prefab.
Yeah.
So that means that everyone gets a linked entity group pretty much always,
and that's
and it
basically
severely
taken with, like,
degrades your chunk
16
capacity.
Right,
integers.
because so many are 0. They don't have anything else.
Yeah, exactly. So you end up only being able to store like 100 and something in a chunk.
Yeah.
It
That makes sense.
in a lot of cases. So yeah, no.
When was that change?
Like 1.23, I think.
Oh, that's that recent?
Yeah, it was fairly recent. I remember us going through the change log on the show one time.
Huh.
Not
Yeah.
too long ago.
Then I have not coded with that yet. I think Chickens 2 is too old for that.
But you can probably also recognize that it makes more sense that
Yeah,
the group is smaller.
100%. I actually had a version which stripped out that a lot of that stuff from my crawlers on start, like cleaned up the prefab of my crawler from a bunch of different stuff that has to do with rendering and that for example, because I wanted it to fit as many as I could into a chunk. So I like squeezed out because it baked because it was a rendering thing. It had the information about like reflection probe, no, not the reflection probe, something else, some probe data and stuff, and the linked entity group, and I just removed all of that on startup, so it was as small as possible. But I think there's probably a better way to do that now than to do it manually by removing it. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on prefabs from the start. Maybe is there any ideas or any API to like say to like I want the prefab without anything except for the exact things I'm putting on it?
Oh, I know there's no API for that.
Because like all the scene references and everything like that, there's a bunch of stuff. Well, some of them are a chunk component, I guess, or a share component, but
yeah, and a bunch of it is also stripped away in builds.
oh yeah, that's right.
Like entity GUID, for instance, and all the like.
Yeah, and this comment here, use a baking system. Yes. The baking system wasn't really a thing when I wrote that stripper. So it was a thing, but it was very, very early. So I got that excuse going for me every time now. Like, oh, it's too early. I didn't have it better. All right, enough of that.
Yeah, I did also notice that someone was like, because now there has been a lot of me saying, don't use entity command buffers, and then someone saying, show how to do it without entity command buffers. And the thing is, it's heavily dependent on your use case, but most of the time it is if you're destroying a bunch of entities, okay, use an enableable component that you set instead, and then call entity manager dot destroy entity, passing in an entity query with that enableable component. That's all it requires at that point. That's one alternative. There's also like just creating a list and then using entity manager and passing in that list, because a lot of the destroy and create entity, etc., require that. If you have, say, a create entity and then an add component, then you just store your own. I mean, okay, if you're truly using something that it ends up being the entity command buffer, use the entity command buffer. It's not like it's going anywhere, but you should really try to not use it when you think it's doing more than
But
it is.
that example you just said, that like create an entity and then add a component, that could be like, you have a paralyzed job for all the guns in the game, and the guns needs to produce projectiles or whatever, and that's something that you do with entity command buffer very easily when you're starting out with ECS. But like you can just like okay, I have a native array that I declare before I go into the job, and I say, and this native array is just has a struct in it, and this struct describes exactly every describes discharged bullets. And then you, inside of the shotgun or the gun update loop, you fill that with all the bullets you want to spawn, and then afterwards you can consume that list after the job is done. And you can first of all, you can batch up, so you create all of the different, for example, shotgun pellets. All of them you can create with one instantiate function. So you can instantiate 100 shotgun pellets with one instantiate function called to the entity manager, and then you have all of these position and directions that you probably stored in the native array, where you say where the bullets coming from and where are they going, and you just go through that list and then assign all of those values into those newly created list of entities. And that you do on the main thread, not in the because you already processed the heavy load about calculating where everything is going. So now you just need to create entities and just assign them the right properties in the where they are and where they're going according to whatever physics system or whatever you're doing. And then all of that in the main thread, it goes fast, and then you're done. And then you don't need to touch the entity command buffer, because that will also go on the main thread, just slower because it's generalized.
Yeah. Here's also another fun example. One thing the entity command buffer does actually batch, which makes so little sense that it batches, is create entity calls. What it does is, so if you have a create entity call, and then the next entity command buffer call that you do is also a create entity call, then it will actually turn those into one command. Where it creates two.
But that's only if you put them
if it's the very next command.
So you can't do in like a for loop, like if you had like create and then like set component data,
that would work.
like that, then it just breaks the whole.
Yeah, that breaks. But the reason I mentioned this one is that it greatly shows the problem that also comes from entity command buffer, which is that people start thinking less. Because why are you, like, if you think about what an entity command buffer is, it's a list of commands, and it is being added and allocated inside your job to then be, executed on the main thread. Now, if you say you just had a job that wanted to create n number of entities, then you don't actually need that create entity call inside of the job. What you instead can just have is a number. Like, I know I need to spawn 5 bullets. I'm just gonna bump a number for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's no allocations at all. That's just a number going up. That's the same number going up. And so then you can just afterwards say, hey, create entity, create 5, and that's so much cheaper. But people don't realize that that's so easy, because it's like, there you start thinking in terms of entity command buffer code, because you're now used to writing entity command buffer code.
Yeah, this is actually very, very good. Is there a way to set a native array of a component into a native array of all entities all at once? So I'm guessing this like the problem is like, can you somehow produce components as a native array and then just click it in as components into the chunk that's used by entities, so you don't need to like copy every component one by one into the entity components.
Like if there is a way to say, I mean, there
Well,
is.
it would need to be parallel with your, say, array of entities, right?
I mean,
But if you create a bunch of new ones, then that's not an issue, because you can like line it up, because the new ones can be in their own chunk, right?
You would
I
think.
think
This
I'm
is
confused.
exactly what I do. What I've
I'm
done. This
confused
is
about
why
the
I'm.
question. Is the question? I'm gonna read it now. Actually, is there a way to set a native array of a component into a native array of all entities at once? No, I'm still confused.
Like basically, you have a native array of entities, a native array of components, and say, boom, take all these components, set that data on these entities.
That's what I understand it too.
Okay, I see.
I'm doing exactly this in just read instructions. I can see if I can find the stuff
I don't
that
know
does
if
it.
memcopy would quite work, because if the entities could be in different chunks, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is that, I mean, let's. I guess it depends on what you might need it for. If it's I feel like I would need a specific use case before knowing what the right solution would be.
Well, I mean, I guess it's
'Cause-
basically like Tobias was like saying, like if you're creating a bunch of entities, and then all those entities are going to have like different component values on them, can you just, create lists within your loop, and then when that's all done, use entity manager, create this number of entities, and then take your array of components, set all that data like that, so you're not like setting one by one on each entity.
Yeah, let's show. This might be a little bit complex to get to show like this, but we can try, because this is exactly what this does. So if we ignore this from the beginning, so what's happening here is that I have parallelized jobs that produces mostly via collision checks and raycast, produces valid positions of different props in my generated world, and they are coming in as a native array of local transforms already prepared in the right position. And I have a prefab, and I just want to create X amount. The amount here is the amount I want to create. I want to create X amount of this and place them on all of these positions. So what I do is that I create I instantiate the prefab. I add the just created component to the prefab. I instantiate all of them, so maybe 100 of them, and then I set enabled for some, and I disable them for some reason. I don't remember exactly why I do this. And then I do a query where I query for the just created. So everybody of this got the just created tag, because I just added that to the prefab. And I query for the local transform and the just created, and then this thing. So the query copy from component array. So I take all of the placements, the world local transform placement. This is essentially world positions, because I don't have a parent anywhere. And I just copy over all of these positions into the just newly created set of entities that I just created. And then I remove the just created from the whole query, and remove it from the prefab and enable everything. So this is basically just creating all of these entities and placing them according to this big native array of placements. Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah. I'm surprised I didn't know we had a copy from component data array.
Yeah, this
Pretty
helped
cool.
me a shit ton.
But that makes sense, because we do have some samples where we create the native array or native list of
I
local
would
transforms and then copy that.
Yeah, because like there's just arrays in the chunk, right? So why not be able to just provide your own array more or less? And like I understand that it says copy, so it's not I'm not swapping out the arrays, obviously, but like a linear big copy of a full list is super fast. So this is like can you just put this memory on top of that? Everything is just in
Yeah,
one big line. That's super
I would
fast.
hope and assume that it's something like, oh, I'm gonna take 128 local transforms and copy them over to this chunk, and then 128 local transforms and copy it over to this one. It's probably more complicated than that version, but it should be in the newer versions.
Yeah, this is probably because you have multiple chunks. This is probably quite a big thing to do. But I imagine there's a big somewhere linear something here is probably
Yeah,
some
look,
mem copy.
that's just a mem copy.
There we go. That's it.
It's just a mem copy.
Yeah, that's it.
But
I
that's
think
because you're in the without filter. If it was filtered, it would be more advanced.
yeah, but I don't filter any of this. I don't think, because filtered, we are talking about the filter with the like shared component type of filter, right?
Filter means any time that it needs to do filtering on the chunk itself or other filtering. So it's shared components. It's also enableable components. It's also
it's a little bit more
something
complicated.
right groups. That's the last one.
Right, but I don't use any of those. So yeah, but that makes sense. This is the with filter, a little bit more complicated. But anyway, so I would assume that's sort of what the question was aimed at. And yeah, I do this all the time, because when I produce the level, when I generate the level, I don't want to deal with any entity creation until I know exactly where everything is. And the entity is like completely irrelevant until I've figured out the position of everything. Nothing needs to be addressed to globally in any way, or like be able to be queried or anything. It's just collision, figuring out where collision is supposed to fit in. And then when everything is figured out, then I just instantiate everything like this. Yes. All right.
I mean, another thing. Oh wait, no, I forgot what I wanted to say. Fuck. No, what was it? Fudge. Danny.exe stopped responding.
I know that copy from component data array
is pretty
cool,
useful.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I did everything without that one, and then I like, there must be another way of putting this array into the right place. And like, oh,
yeah, because I was looking through the entity manager documentation, and there is an add component data. Here, I guess I can just share this. So yeah, there is an add component at data on an entity query. No, Bing, stop. And then you pass in a native array, and it does an add component on that entity query. And I suppose, all the values of the native array could be set.
Yeah, and then the structural change you get from this is probably completely irrelevant, since it's a batch job. Yeah, so basically the same thing that I did, but you don't put the component onto the prefab first. You put the component onto the entity when it's already instantiated.
Right. Yeah. However, there is no set component data. Got a similar one where you could do it on an entity query and pass in a native array.
And now I remember what I wanted to say, which is that something that is also very useful to do is to use entity archetypes as like a thing that you use to instantiate. Like when you use create entity, or when you use, especially if you use the entity command buffer version of create entity, don't do your create entity, then add component, then add component. I get a little flip anytime I see anyone do create entity.
Yeah,
then
you were giving me the whole runaround when I was showing off my code that I made in like 20 minutes for that Blackthorn prod jam thing.
Yeah, because it's like, imagine what actually happens. It's like
dude,
and then it's like it moves the chunk, and then it moves the chunk again, and it moves the chunk again, and all you had to do was create an archetype, and
But it becomes so verbose, Danny. We don't have the typing speed.
No, okay, so that's why I added a little utility function for people to use called stack alloc, and then
But that's super verbose too. I'm sorry, I like it, but it's very verbose.
Yeah, there's 0% chance I'm gonna remember the syntax for that one. I gotta look back at the video we recorded every time I want to use that.
Yeah, I should have a picture somewhere so people can just look at that.
Yeah, have an easy reference. Yeah.
But the thing is that was added because what it was annoying to type was the whole like create archetype and specify. Oh, you actually had to create a native list first. Then you had to fill that list with all the right components, and then you could create an archetype, and then you could call that create entity, which was the right thing to do. But it was a lot of typing to do that one. So that's why I added create entity, where you pass in a stack alloc with the right components, and that's the nicest syntax you can get for the best performance. But because there's no such thing as span stack allocs.
Don't thing as what?
Span stack alloc.
Oh, span stack alloc.
Yeah.
Span is a weird thing. I don't like it. It's so weird. It's
You
like
don't
move. It's like I enumerator and move next. It's just is.
Yeah. No, I like.
Where does it come from? Nobody knows.
I do like span more. I hate when people return an I enumerator for their functions.
Why?
Because when you do that, you now, for instance, lose what's it called? The fact that it was a list or an array, and so you end up having a bunch of people do two array on something that was already an array. Or two lists on something that was already a list.
Right.
Why the fuck did they do that?
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, okay.
Or they end up calculating the count on something that already had a count.
Yeah. Or they calculate the count and then they use a bigger than bracket for 0 instead of using any.
I saw someone, and the worst part is I saw someone in our code base do it was in the source generator. They did a what's it called, an IEnumerator return at some point, and then it was doing .distinct. And what was it? The IEnumerator? Well, it was a hash set. So why are they doing .distinct as a link operation, which is a very expensive link operation that will try to make a distinct version of whatever
something that's
enumerated
already a hash map.
Yeah. So it was already distinct. So what the fuck are they doing here? They're doing a no-op, but it's a very, very expensive no-op.
Yeah. That's yeah.
And apparently there's disagreement in the C# team at Unity on what kind of thing we should return. Because obviously returning the most generic thing also means you get to use the most generic thing. But it seems that the higher ups want you to return the least generic thing, but always take as input the most generic thing, which kind of does make sense. So you take as input IEnumerators, but you return span lists, etc.
Yeah, that's a mess sometimes in a lot of code bases. Pro Builder's code base is a complete scattered all over between IEnumerator, iList, list, array, and you're like, what is it now? I just dot to array, whatever. I just gonna move on with my life. It's just all the different lists are returned and put into all of the different versions of Pro Builder functions, and I don't know what's going on here anymore. Yeah. All right.
By the way, speaking of spans, shout out to Nick Chaspas and his Only Spans merch.
Oh yeah, that's right. Nick Chaspas does recommend span all the time.
Yeah.
To people who don't know, he's like a C#.NET business sort of developer who.
I got him here. Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy.
I never seen that.
Whenever there's a new version of C#, he's the first one to do like a proper video on the subject. I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't really subscribe to a lot of the ways that he does program, but I do like his videos in terms of like informative versions.
Yeah,
Like,
I think he's got
this is
some
the new
helpful stuff. Yeah.
like this is what is new in C# 12. This is what is what
Yeah.
Spain is all about.
Yeah.
That is generally good and objective. But his videos on like how you should design code is I would never. I
would never. All right.
Danny, is Unity doing okay?
I mean,
you have to answer for the full organization right
for
now.
the full, this is my personal opinion. I have to say this for legal reasons. But I mean, yeah. Like I think the people who are working on important stuff are allowed to work on the important stuff, and I'm pretty happy about working on that.
Important stuff is important stuff. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And we are less and less fluff, because there was a lot of fluff.
Yes, yes.
And the stock price is only down 60% on the year, so could be worse.
I still have
actually, it did go up recently. I don't know why.
There's a little uptick right here.
Wait,
Yeah.
is it
If we go to, like, the
15
last
now?
1 month.
It was 17.
Yeah.
Look, it was all the way up to 18. Why is it 15 now? It's not.
A rough life.
Yeah, no, but
It's Unity and Boeing that's just tanking my portfolio. No, yeah, I have a little bit in Boeing. I bought in the dip in during COVID just for fun. Like, I can buy something that's completely down at the bottom, but they just kept on going bad. Unity is not that bad. But stock prices is just like somebody shouting prices at each other, and nobody knows actually.
They'll bounce back if we ever get to see what Danny's working on.
Yes. All right.
Okay, well, I got a bunch of other things to talk about, but maybe we could save these for another time here.
I just want to highlight that's funny.
Unity is like a two-headed Hydra where one head keeps trying to bite itself off and the other head is doing cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fair. All right. Well, so we can kind of close things out as we like to do our dynamic allocation where we share some fun things with the community. So, Tobias, did you were you able to come up with something here?
I just come up with. I'm gonna find a link to it. This is super not gaming. Super not developing. The TI.
Cool.
That's actually in Danny's country, in Denmark. Dota 2, the international, is started yesterday, I think. No, 2 days ago. So you just go to this address and it will be like it's now all the matches is over, I think. I don't think the prize pool is as big as it's been a couple of years before, but it's pretty big. And don't miss it. Dota is a very, very fun esports game, I think, to watch.
Yeah, you've been big into Dota for a long time, right?
Yeah, but
is that kind of like what got you interested in joining Stunlock, or because you guys were working on a MOBA for a while,
that was actually the other way around. I thought I like playing Dota, but I think this is not the game, not a fun type of game to code on, so I don't want to join Stunlock. And then my friend, who you met, Tao, at Danny, you met her. She convinced me, come and work for us. We need programmers, and you can continue with something else afterwards. That was her pitch, and then I ended up working there for 6 years because it's an awesome company.
Yeah, it seems like they got some good stuff going on over there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, watch Dota 2. It's super fun.
Dota. So is like the main tournament kind of happening over the weekend?
I should. I think right now it's the road to the international, because they're like when you're on the stage in the final thing, I think, which is next weekend. Then it's the international, and I think it's only 8 teams. Now there are 16 teams, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
And they're like narrowing it down, and they're playing from hotel rooms and stuff, because you can't fill up a stadium forever. So they're saving.
It's roughly. I just figured it out. It's roughly 1 kilometer from where I live.
Oh wow!
Oh,
It's very close by.
Damn,
go
damn.
check it out.
Yeah.
I would totally be able to hear it if
The tickets are apparently very expensive. I have a friend who is going in for the 2-3 last days, and yeah, that was not the cheap.
How
To
much?
watch,
How much is very expensive?
I think I don't remember, but I remember I just was very surprised. I think it was like over $150 for 2 days or something.
I mean, that's like.
I've
I mean,
been to a few.
like an NFL game, like an NFL football game. Like tickets are like $200 for like decent seats,
Yeah,
and
but
that's like a couple hours. It's not like
yeah,
a all
but there
weekend
are
event.
I think there might be some premium seats, but otherwise they're like just free seating, generally speaking,
Okay.
at the events I've been to. I've been to two pretty big Dota events, and both of them have been more or less free seating. But it's different when it's like a hockey match or a football match or whatever. Then you see the players running around, but then now it's just people staring into a
Yeah,
screen on
they're like
top.
in a little booth and
Yes, it's I mean, I appreciate the thing to have an actual physical LAN event like that, then you can come and watch them. But I think it's like it's not as interesting as an actual sporting event physically being
right.
there. So the ticket prices are just probably a reflection of
Yeah.
of the demand and how much it costs, not the actual experience, because the actual experience is not that amazing.
I mean, it must be the same reason though that you're going to like see a sports match, which is like the camaraderie, going there with someone,
Yeah, that's true. But
eating the food.
I've been to like a football match in Italy between two big teams, and then it's like, yep, you pay $300 for this, no question about it. I get it.
Yeah,
This is
yeah. But you go with
crazy.
your friends. You go there for the like,
Yeah.
seeing a
But
team
but
win
it's
or lose.
I think esports doesn't really have the same appeal in IRL when you're there. Otherwise, I think esports is much more fun than normal sports. But as an arena sport, I prefer normal. I think they can charge more for an actual sporting event. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Danny, what you got for us?
I didn't even think of anything. That's a good question. What have you got? Meanwhile, I've searched for something.
Well, Danny. So, wanted to give a little shout out here to this interview between Billy Basso and this guy Abner. So Abner, he basically runs the Handmade Cities, which is kind of like a spin-off of Casey Muratori's whole Handmade Hero type thing.
Andrew Kelly, the video I have on Andrew Kelly is from Handmade Seattle 20 something.
Oh yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah, he set up.
Yeah. So this guy Abner, he basically puts on these kind of handmade events. So this one was basically an interview that they did for Handmade Boston, which it seemed like it was basically a whole online kind of conference. And so, yeah, they interviewed Billy Basso. He's the creator of the game Animal Well, which many of you may know. It's a popular indie game that was published by Video Game Donkey, the first video game published by Video Game Donkey's publishing company Big Mode. And yeah, what was really cool about this is this guy Billy, he basically created everything in the game. So he did, all the art, music, all the programming, and not just all the programming, but he made his own engine for it. And so that's actually what they kind of a lot of this discussion was around, is because Billy had been basically following Casey's Handmade Hero since the very beginning. And so it was, really interesting because he kind of like talked about his whole journey about how he was, just kind of working on a, generic game engine. And he's like, when I have an idea for a game, I'll be able to make it because now I have this engine that I can use. But then like he kind of came to the realization that that wasn't really the best approach, and that he kind of as he got the idea for this game Animal Well, he kind of started basically from scratch, and he basically just said, I'm going to make everything when I need it, and only when I need it. So he said like he almost like set up like a challenge for himself where he didn't even have like a vector 2 struct for like a very long portion of development until it like finally got to the point where he's like, okay, you know, like it kind of makes sense to maybe track the position of entities with like a vector 2 type thing. But before that, he was just using, you know, like float X, float Y, basically. So yeah, basically, again, I think there's a lot of like really good lessons from this, not only from a technical side, but just also as far as like, you know, marketing a game goes and things like this. So it was a good interview overall. I quite enjoyed it.
I've seen some screenshot or some tweet from about this, and I didn't pay attention, but now I'm gonna actually watch all of it because
yeah, no, it was. I was actually just listening to this just yesterday. Like as I was working around, I was doing some like UI stuff in the Dot Survivors project. So it was like, you know, good timing to have like a little interview on in the background, and I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely. So yeah, let me
Good
go
stuff.
ahead and I'll post this link in the chitty chat for y'all. Danny, anything exciting to share with us?
Yeah, sure. There's this guy that also does a lot of interesting stuff. Mostly work on N64 demakes.
Cool.
Oh yes, I've seen this.
Where
Oh.
he basically was trying for a while to recreate Portal on the N64.
Oh yeah.
Didn't he succeed?
He succeeded, but for licensing reasons couldn't release it.
Yeah.
Because he was using some SDK from, you know, N64 times Nintendo, and you know how Nintendo and licensing.
Yeah. Really stupid.
Yeah. So he had some problems there, which is a little sad. But now he's still going at it, making fun stuff. He just had a video on like making a mouse and keyboard for his N64.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very fun, and he does like, for instance, here there's a video about optimization for the N64, and many of these strategies are still valid today, just a slightly different. Also because the N64, from a hardware perspective, is so different than hardware you have today, where it was very memory band, like the memory bandwidth of an N64 is so incredibly low that you had to think of like the amount of instructions you send is costly. So you to optimize some piece of code, maybe you ran a slower instruction because it meant that you had to run less instructions, which would make it faster.
That's so funny.
That's crazy.
I mean, that is like OG data-oriented optimization, where you're like, down at the like instruction level, where you say like, that is quite funny. Like, even though this is slower, we can send more of them through.
Yeah.
And it's a net faster.
Yeah, exactly. So I can recommend his stuff. He doesn't. You can go through his whole catalog in like a day.
Yeah, that's not that intimidating as opposed to some YouTube channels where there's like 1 million videos and you're like, oh my god, I want to watch them all.
Yes.
One thing, just before I forget it, that I want to add about Dota, that I think is funny. I don't know if you guys can relate to that. I remember 2013, I had a classmate who won the international with Alliance, as called, and I think they got to share $1 million between 5.
Wow.
And then after taxes and everything, it turned out to, I don't know, $30,000 dollars per person, I think, something like that. And I told my mom this when this was when I studied, just started at Stanlock, actually. I told my mom this, and like, it was my one friend from university who won, and she said back, oh, and he won that much? Why don't you do that? And I was like, well, Mom, maybe when I was 15, I was sitting in the basement and playing Dota all day, and you forced me out to go and get some fresh air. Maybe that's when you squashed that dream from me. I don't know if you have.
I guess my similar story to that is growing up, like my video game time was like very limited, and like I especially wasn't able to play like any type of like violent video game. So, you know, no Call of Duty, Halo, like none of that. Anything M-rated, just immediate no. And even if it was like T rated, like I'd have to like put on like a good, you know,
Give some massage. And
yeah. Like Mom, it's Star Wars. Come on. How bad could Star Wars be, right?
Yeah.
And then anyways, there was like one time where I was like home for winter break, for like from college, and I like had my PS4 with me, and I was like at home like playing some Battlefield or whatever. And then like my mom came in the room and she's like, why are you playing games? Like that's what kids do or something. I'm like, because you never let me play these when I was a kid. And she's like, okay, fine.
How the turntables.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I was allowed to play everything. Like I played GTA as a kid. So
Nice.
I was like 6 when I played my first GTA.
Oh wow. Damn.
Look how you turned out.
Yeah, it's fine.
Completely crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Well, yeah, with that, we can go ahead and close out our show by thanking our Patreon supporters. Just remember, you can support us on Patreon and through YouTube memberships, and we have some cool additional bonus videos and stuff for you over there. I do just want to give a major shout out to our supporters at the CPU Register tier, which is our highest tier. So thank you very much to Hakan and eCool for your support. We really do appreciate it over there. So yeah, with that is episode 00100000, aka episode 32, episode 2 to the 5th of the Hot Path Show.
Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Nice round number for you. Yeah, hope you all enjoyed it. Was definitely a fun discussion here today, and yeah, there's definitely more exciting ECS stuff that I want to talk to you guys about in the coming weeks. And don't forget, we got Unite coming up. About a week and a half from now is when it kicks off. So if you're going to be there, we'll see you all there. I know Wayne Games is going to be there.
Yeah, as well.
A couple of you others there as well. So
Good stuff.
Yeah, definitely exciting times. So Danny, any parting words for the crew?
To carry on and speed on. I don't know.
Perfect. Tobias, what you got?
Code on. Go in peace.
Go on. Make sure you pick up some of your Hot Path merch. No, I don't have this for sale right now. Although at Unite, got plenty of stickers for you all. So
Gotta stick it to you. That's cool.
Stick it to you. All right, everybody. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.